Hi, everyone. This is Janet with Living Astrology. It's great to see everybody. Hopefully, you're all having a wonderful day so far. Grab your coffee and or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening up in the stars above. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. Um, I'm going to start again. Good morning and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening up in the stars. I inadvertently stopped the recording this morning and I was looking for how to restart the recording. And yeah, okay, so things are a little twisted this morning. It's okay. It's all good. We're doing good here. So how did everybody do yesterday in the day of a bit of confusion, a little bit of craziness? It was really hot here in my part of the world, up in the northwest corner of Washington State. And today it's a whole lot cooler. In fact, this morning it was a good 10 degrees cooler in the house than it was when I went to bed last night. That is amazing to me, how quickly things can change. So wherever you are, I hope you're staying cool. I hope you're having fun. And hopefully today's energy brings us a little bit less confusion, a little bit more clarity. And in fact, I do believe that will be the case. Today, as we start the day, the moon is still in the sign of Scorpio. So we're dealing with passion, we're dealing with intensity, we're dealing with uncovering the dark places within us. And to help us with that today, we are going to take a dive into the descendant of your astrology chart. The descendant meaning the exact opposite point in the chart from the ascendant, where the ascendant was about your personal point of view and how you would see the world, kind of what you look like, your personality. The descendant forms the cusp of the seventh house on the opposite side of the first house in your chart. And it's more about what you look for in a partner or what you see when you look in the mirror. Who is there in the mirror staring back at you? That's kind of what we're looking at with that seventh house cusp, also known as the descendant. It forms an angle in the chart, which is a very important place in the chart. And in a few minutes, we'll go and talk more about what that means and maybe take a look at a couple of charts and try to bring it on home. What does that mean? Who are you seeing in that mirror? First, I want to start with what the moon is doing this morning. First, we'll go and we'll say hello to everybody. Hi, Monique and Jennifer Peachy. Amy, good morning. Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel, good morning to you. J-Lo, Jen Lack, good morning. Tati, good morning. Kimberly, good morning. Phantom Chroma, good to see you. Kimberly says, oh, this is perfect because I sometimes feel like I have a hard time understanding my Gemini descendant. Well, that's because it's not just one thing over there, is it? Right? It's like two people in the mirror. And CR Bowles, I think you're Sue. Good morning. It's been a while since we've seen you, but it's good to see you. Amy says, and my Pisces descendant is conjunct my Venus. Well, my Capricorn descendant has Saturn conjunct it. So I get you. There's that serious quality there for you. It might be a little bit less easy for you to see yourself clearly in the face of other people. Sue, that's correct. Awesome. So really glad that I remembered who you are. It's great to see everybody this morning. So if I've missed saying hello to you, hello to you. And let's go now and take a look at what the moon will be doing today. And then we can launch into our chat about the descendant. Today, the moon, like I said, is in Scorpio. It does move void, of course, later on in the evening, my time, 9:01 p.m. So literally it is 12:01 a.m. for those of you on the East Coast. So Central Time West is going to be sometime today. For those of you Eastern time zone in the US and further east, it is going to be in the morning tomorrow. And it's a very short one, really, in the grand scheme of things. It's only a couple of hours. It ends at 25 after midnight for those of us on the West Coast, and that puts it at 3:25 or so in the morning. So basically, almost everybody, when we get up tomorrow morning, we're going to be in Sagittarius energy, a completely different creature from Scorpio energy, and likely easier for some of us to deal with. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the transits tomorrow. Now, today, the moon in Scorpio is making quite a few contacts before it actually moves on. And that will be a trine to Mercury, a sextile to Jupiter. If there's a sextile to Jupiter, you know there's also going to be one to Pluto and also to Saturn. And in between the Jupiter-Pluto sextile is a trine to Neptune. So when I step back and I look in at the day, it really does feel a whole lot less chaotic than yesterday did, a whole lot more clear. Yesterday, things were just so, it would, yesterday felt like, when you are looking out at a highway and the highway has a lot of heat and you can see almost the heat waves rising, and it does sort of make things look a little weird, right? It just distorts the view. Well, that's kind of how I felt like yesterday was. The view was distorted. Today, the view is starting to come into a little more clarity. And there's still a trine, as I said, going on with between the moon and Neptune, which still means there's a little bit of leftover there. But I think what we can do today that we couldn't do so much yesterday was to pick out our intuitive hits and really understand what is right for us versus what yesterday's energy was sort of that wobbliness, right? We couldn't just kind of pick it out. And it was interesting yesterday because there's this opportunity for me sitting out there, and I've just been in hold, right? I think I told you I'm just sort of holding on something big and waiting for clarity. And as my human design solar plexus would give me. And again, yesterday, after I thought I had made it, a sort of decision about not entering into this, it comes back. And so now I'm sitting there going, oh, now it's in my outer world. So it's something for me to respond to. And so I'm having to use my intuition today, which is not necessarily it's not consistent for me. So I'm also having to apply the emotional center to all of this to see what is really true and correct for me. So if you're feeling a little bit like me, tugged and pulled in maybe a couple of different directions and not really sure where to land, at least know you're in good company. And the default is always going to be what your strategy and your authority is in human design. I know that. And so I am sitting here in my time of waiting for clarity. And that is exactly what it's meant by waiting for clarity, right? I have to wait for all of that emotional energy to clear somewhat to give me that clear direction. So if you're still feeling a little wobbly in knowing what to do or what direction to take or what course you need to take, then use your type, your strategy, and your authority to help you make those decisions. And that way you're never going to have to question yourself. Is this right? Is this wrong? Should I, shouldn't I? Because all of that is coming from your authority. So, and if you don't know what I'm talking about because you're new, and that's great. If you're new, welcome. Then go to my website, and that is www.living-astrology.com, and request your free either astrology chart or human design chart or both. You don't have to request only one or the other. You can get both. So, and let me just say a word here really quickly. Sometimes when I get charts for people, they try to get charts for their family members or friends or significant others, and they resubscribe. So you're actually subscribing to my mailing list when you are requesting your free chart. So don't do that. Email me instead and say, hey, I would like a chart for my husband, my wife, or my, sister, brother, cousin, kids, whatever, so that you don't have to keep subscribing to the mail list and end up then when I do send out letters or newsletters that you end up getting 10 of them because you requested 10 different charts. So email me, Janet at living-astrology.com or astrology.com, and tell me, hey, I ordered my own chart. Now I would like one for my husband or my whatever. Okay. That way I can get that to you without having to resubscribe to something. All right, now let's take a look at what these different transits of the day, how they affect us. The first one being a trine to Mercury, which by the way happened already this morning. It was the first transit of the day. And that means that we were building up to it. It happened, and now we're in the waning aspects of it. It was Mercury in a trine to or moon in a trine to Mercury. And this was about expressing ourselves and our feelings. So when the moon aligns with Mercury, we get an opportunity to align sort of our heart and our minds, and to be able then to speak from that sacred place within, and also giving us an opportunity to gain some insight or some clarity into what is true for us, what isn't true for us, Who are we? Where are we going? And what's going on in my life? What is it showing me? All of these things help us to gain insight and clarity during a trine to Mercury like that. So head and heart aligned, coming into that alignment rather than being skewed in two different directions, sort of pulling us off into those different directions. And then as well today, we have the sextile to Jupiter. That also happened or will happen. I think that one was at 9 o'clock this morning. So yeah, it hasn't happened here yet. It's just a little after 8. So we are aimed then at a sextile to Jupiter from the moon. And this is where gratitude and joy and appreciation for the small things in your life, for the everyday things, right? For the fact that you have this clean water to drink, for the fact that you have glasses that you can see with, or a book that you can read, or a chair that you can sit in, or a person in your life that you love, or enough money to go to the grocery store and purchase food, whatever it is. It's these small things that we have gratitude for that build us up to embracing the larger things. It sort of acts as a magnet to attract to us more things that we can be grateful for, more things that we can be feeling that we are rewarded with. So it's being in the flow of your own good. That's that particular transit for today. So through that expression of the appreciation of all these things, it puts you in the flow of and aimed toward your own personal good. So that's what that sextile to Jupiter says. It is also saying, in a way, because Jupiter's sitting in Capricorn, that it doesn't have to be the big things that make you happy. I mean, sure, they might, right? The big things might make you happy, but if you're not happy with the little things, are you really going to be able to attract those bigger things? So it just says, all things being relative, gratitude goes a long way, even if it is just grateful for this fresh water sitting here that I can drink when I get thirsty. So that's Jupiter. Neptune and the moon come together today in a this is like having your antennas up, right? Your intuitive sort of antenna up, being that having that big receiver here, how the head center in human design crosses above the head and also into the head. So it's receiving information, it's receiving guidance. And today is one of those days where that guidance system is pretty profound, it's pretty accurate. And so it would be a day where I would say, pay attention to what your gut is telling you, pay attention to your intuition, to whatever it is that is coming up for you. Is it, a discord that you're feeling within, and then go tracing that down? What is that related to? And don't be afraid to use your intuition. I think sometimes this becomes a point of confusion for people. For example, me, I've been confused for a long time about this, where I know I have emotional authority, but as I always say, we all have all of the human design, right? So I do have a spleen, even though it's open, and that means I do have access to intuition. So the big things in life are the ones that you really want to default to your authority for. So before I make a big expenditure, before I take a big trip, before I move, before I get to or into or out of a relationship, I'm going to consult that authority and I'm going to wait for clarity there. But there's a myriad of other things, impulses and information that come through on a daily basis to us that are coming through our gut instincts that say things like, you need more water. That say things like, you need to go stretch your legs, right? Or you need to call your mother, or things that, come up. So it's paying attention to all of the receptors that you have out there. But when you have big decisions to make that are going to change your life or affect your life in big ways, that's where you need to default to your authority. So pay attention to your gut instincts, because we all have the spleen, and it is always in some way acting as that receiver of information, bringing it into us. So today's a day, listen to the tune in, right? Get the dial. And unfortunately for us, sometimes it's hard to tune in clearly. And, it's like you're driving out in the desert and you're, tuned into a radio station from Phoenix, but you're, 100 miles from Phoenix and you're not hearing it very clearly. So make sure that you tune in, right? Consciously tune in and pay attention to your gut instincts. But around a big decision, default to your authority. And maybe your authority is splenic, in which case your intuition is it. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. Now we also have sextile going on to the big two, Pluto and Jupiter today, but a sextile in and of itself is a positive flow of energy between the planets. So the moon in this case is positively flowing with the energy of Pluto in Capricorn, moon in Scorpio, Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn. The energy is flowing quite nicely. So with Pluto today, this is really interesting because as I was tuning in, if you will, to what was being brought up with this energy, I kept thinking win-win, right? Win-win situations or win-win scenarios where just because, you and I have a different point of view on something, or because we're pulling in two different directions, doesn't mean that we can't create a pathway to win-win. And win-win is the order of the day today, with Pluto very prominently placed in the sign of Capricorn, having been, responsible in part for all of the destruction in our society and in our outer world. But we've also had that going on within our inner world. So how can you create a win-win for yourself that really supports who you are now versus who you might have been just, a few weeks, months, or maybe a year ago? So win-win is the order of the day with Pluto. With Saturn, now this one doesn't happen until later this evening, but Saturn has that emotional coolness when it comes to the moon. But this is also a sextile. So it's not the coolness that, feels low or, in the dark, or feels separate from the people around you. Like sometimes Saturn can make you feel like you're on the outside looking in. And in this case, it's an emotional coolness, but it gives us the opportunity to make adjustments in our lives, to make a course correction, if you will, with an attitude adjustment, maybe from within. And, sometimes I think about Saturn in terms of karma, the reward karma cycle. And of course, in human design, Jupiter and Saturn bond together in bringing that to us. So maybe today is a great day to tell people that you appreciate them. Give them a pat on the back, right? Let them know they've done a good job. Let them know that even the smallest little thing, like your kid taking the dishes and putting them away, is much appreciated. And, bonding a little deeper with that person in a way that's appreciative. I mean, face it, as a parent, you're often the disciplinarian. And also then on the other side of that coin, you're the one that's meting out reward when things are for a job well done or for doing things correctly. So make corrections to your own attitude, praise yourself, right? Look in the mirror and say, good job, right? I like the way you did that. I like the way you handled that. Make sure that you are being in receiving of praise as well as being able to give it. Now, don't be gushy. Saturn doesn't like gushy here. This isn't about, it would sound fake, right? When a Saturn transit like this comes up, it would sound fake. But just saying, atta girl, atta boy, thank you, those kinds of things go a long way, and then make you feel appreciated as well. So there we have our energies for the day. I mean, in a nutshell, those are pretty darn good days when we have these kinds of things. At first, I looked at the day and I saw the number of transits and I went, yeah, what's that going to mean? And it turns out it's wonderful, right? Wonderful kind of day with just a little bit of maybe unease, as if we needed to get some more clarity before we make a big decision. Okay, let's see who else is out here. Adrienne, good morning. Jules, good morning. Camilla, good morning. Taylor, hey, girl, good to see you. Justice for All, I'm not sure who you are, but hey. And Natasha, good morning. Thank you. The Mercury transit explains more on how to interpret my thick feeling dream. Ooh, Kathy Vick, hey, I'm happy to see and hear you today. Thank you for your work. Thank you very much. I appreciate you for saying that. Sue, love win-win situations. Right. We've had too few of those. We have had too few. I'm sitting here thinking today in the US, this is US centric. So for those of you who are outside of the US, you probably won't care one whit, but our Congress is in the process of determining whether or not and what kind of benefits to keep extending during this COVID virus. And I keep thinking to myself, wow, they've got to come to the middle. I mean, they really do. And how can they do that? Well, and I can't make them do that. I can call my representatives and I can say, hey, be willing to cooperate. But the other thing I was thinking about is how we could affect those kinds of things, right? I'm not directly involved in the Congress. I mean, for God's sakes, I live thousands of miles away from the center, the seat of power in this country. But I can, through my own attitude, through my own thinking about things, project outward a sense of let's create win-win. What would it feel like to create win-win? We've all done that in our lives, right? Where we've created a win-win and both parties get what they need and are happy. I mean, maybe this party yields a little, this party yields a little, but when we cut down to it, all the bases were covered and we felt really good about that interaction. Well, we can project that out to people and allow other people to pick up that energy of cooperation, of collaboration, of doing what's best for the most number of people involved. So that's how I'm going to work today. I'm going to just every moment that I maybe click into what the chaos might be in the seat of power in this country, I'm just going to send out blessings and creating the pathway to win-win situations, right? Win-win. So we can do that. I was reading a book. I don't even know what book it was now, and it might have been an article. And it was talking about experiments that various metaphysical type scientists have run, where they have groups of people that focus on specific energies, and then they measure the way that the meditation energy focus or changes the parameters. So, for example, Lynn McTaggart famously did an experiment in reducing crime in Washington, D.C. And I don't remember for how many days or hours, a group of people sat together and they focused on peace and love, and they brought the crime statistics down like by 27% just from that one group doing that little experiment. It was fantastic. And it showed that we as a group consciousness are really affecting the field being the energetic field, which is why when I have this inner rejection to all of the diatribe that's going on out there in the world, conspiracy theory or regular theory or right-wing media, left-wing media, blah, 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 because to tap into that keeps that opposition alive, right? If I'm tapping into that, if I'm even focusing 1 minute of my time on that, I'm adding to that craziness. So I don't want to add to that craziness. So I'm going to focus on seeing that everything is created in the right and perfect way. Let's see, I'm trying to make the words fit here. And also that it creates a win-win situation, right? No matter which way's right, whatever, whoever's right, there's always going to be seeds and kernels of truth in every kind of theory out there. And I don't want to think about those as theories. I want to think about, what do I want to create in this world? How do I want this world to show up? And I have the power to be able to add to that creation instead of the creation of these other things that are out here. So I'm going to kind of task all of you with, rising to that occasion. And it's okay to know maybe, that these other things exist. But the more you focus, the more brain space you devote to those kinds of theories and to those kinds of things, the more you're acting as a creator in it. I don't want to be a creator of it. No, some of that stuff out there is just nasty. It's just horrible. And I don't want to say, okay, I don't want to reject that out of hand. I understand it's a part of humanity. It's a part of who we are. It's part of our shadow. And I want to embrace that part of myself that's attached to that shadow. But I really want to say, okay, but I'm going to focus my energy over here. Right? So let's focus our energy on what's positive, what's brewing underneath all that ugliness, that shadowy energy, that kernel that we can bring in and we can expand and create the world that we want to live in. And we have that we can do that. Okay. Let me get off my soap box. Totally lost that one. What are we saying here? I feel every day is good for win-win. I love it. Amy, funny because I pulled a Monology Oracle card a couple times yesterday. They said a win-win outcome is forecast. Woohoo! We appreciate you. Thank you very much, Amy. I appreciate you. Justice for All says, should we go back to in-person schooling in the fall? Why are politicians using educators as pawns? Again, you're tapping into the ugliness of what is out there. Should the kids go back to school? Well, I think that's probably something that each state or each local principality is going to have to determine from themselves and for themselves. And I hope they do it from a place of consciousness and not a place of fear, and not a place of buying into the story out there, right? Buying into the story. I had such a fascinating conversation on Saturday. I was at a wedding. It was an outdoor wedding. So it was, we were able to stay apart. And I was talking to this woman who had been in the emergency room over the last month or so with a friend of hers. And I asked her what the situation was in the local hospital, because by all accounts, we're seeing, huge numbers of increase in the virus. And I wanted to know, what do the emergency rooms look like? Are there people there? And she said, she asked the nurse there what the ICU looked like. And the nurse said, it's almost empty. And I went, wow, that's a tell, right? So maybe in some cases we're overblowing this problem. I'm not sure. I don't want to say, but I do want to say that sometimes what you're hearing from either side is not quite right. So you have to walk that middle path, and you have to just keep focused on what it is you want. What is your desire? And why are politicians using educators as pawns? Why do they use anybody as pawns? For more power, right? To get reelected. They haven't quite become conscious enough to play to the good out there, and instead they play to the drama. Oh, Joyanne, the public bailed out the banks. The banks owe the public a bailout. Ha, plutocracy, payout time. Taylor Jenkins, but wow, that's amazing. We had one of those meditations in April. It's perfect, isn't it? We did that in our pranic healing group. Debbie Tibbetts-Tumiel says, for steaming a storm away from the pranic healing center, it worked. Oh, steering, but steaming works too. Joyanne, clarity and harmony. Amy, my defined throat has a big problem getting involved in politics and getting so passionate and upsetting myself. So you always give the best advice. And Augustina, hello to you. Camilla says, hello to Augustina. Debbie, all the Nordic countries kept schools open, no issues. And Jennifer Peachy, I code inpatient medical records and only coded 2 positive cases since started and hospitals empty. Jennifer Peachy, I wonder where you are. I think you're in Seattle, aren't you? Let me know. So it's interesting, right? We're hearing these stories, then those stories breed these other stories, and story. And then we either buy into the story, or we can do what I would suggest we all do, is separate ourselves away, back out from the story, and look in with different eyes. What do I want to create? You're going to focus on what you want to create. And the more energy you put into what you want to see in the world, the more easily that energy becomes expressed. That's the whole point, right? What you focus on becomes your reality. And if we're focusing on all the negative and all the craziness, then what we see through everything, our whole filter becomes that craziness. And in reality, that craziness is created by us focusing on it. Oh, it's just crazy. You can go round and round and round. I think that's the meaning of Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn at their various times sitting at the gate 61 in our human design, the one that comes down the middle, where the shadow energy is a psychosis, and how we've created this field out of the shadow of fear of psychosis on the planet. Well, let's uncut it, or let's cut it off. Let's let it go, right? Let's move into the next, which is awe and wonderment, right? The magic, the mystical. Okay. All right. Now let's go into our conversation around the Descendant. Now, I think what I'll do, let me go quickly and open up the chart for the day. Then I can show you that by sharing my screen. And there, now you all should be seeing my screen. This is the chart of this morning. I drew this chart at 6:41 my time. So it's maybe a little bit different now, as in the moon has probably moved off a couple of degrees. But it will give us this picture. Last week, we were looking at the Ascendant. And we discovered that the Ascendant was our personal point of view, the sort of mask that we wear when viewing the world. And it's unique to each person based on the time that they were born, where they were born, and the date, of course, that you were born. Right now, at this time in the morning, rising in the east is Leo energy. So Leo is rising this morning, and that means that Aquarius, the exact opposing sign, would have been on the descendant. It would have been setting on the western horizon. So we have the eastern horizon here, we have the western horizon here, and the descendant then forms the cusp of the seventh house of relationship in this chart. So it's the house of partnerships, it's the house of marriage. So when we think of the seventh house, it is our connecting to the one or to someone in a very powerful way. And it doesn't have to be just one person, by the way. These can be business partnerships, these can be marriage partnerships, these can be committed partnerships. For example, not married partners, but they're committed in one way or another to each other. And the descendant in the natural astrology wheel or horoscope wheel is ruled by Libra and the planet Venus. So we always see that relationship, harmony, love all comes into this part here. This is more intertwined love, let's call it. The fifth house gives us love and romance, sort of that, the blush of that first love, or the way that we romance one another. And then the seventh house becomes the more mature expression of that love and of that relationship, where now it's not just that blush of love and doe eyes and seeing one another for the first time, or early dating. Now we've taken it and we've matured that, and now we're weathering the storms, and we are weathering the good times. So we are going through a process of being in a committed relationship. So this descendant here, where this end is our mask and what we are showing the world, this end over here shows what we are looking for in a partner, or in any kind of partner. So a love relationship or a business partnership, so romantic or business, and what we admire in another person. So a Leo person here has the screen of being the individualist. Their filter is about being the center of attention. They're sort of the large and in charge. They're superior in their own minds. But what they are really looking for in a partner over here in Aquarius is that ability to be part of a group, right? To be part of something bigger than just themselves. Or maybe they want to, a partner that supports the freedom, because Aquarius is a freedom loving sign, the freedom to be themselves, right? The freedom to be themselves and to express their world the way they want to, but also to be admired by this other person. So a Leo rising is looking to Aquarius as the things that they admire or see in another person that they want. Often we admire those qualities because we feel like we lack them. So we might look out, if I'm a Leo rising, I might look out at Aquarius here, and I might see this freedom to be, this ability to network and to be a part of a group, and to give generously to others of my time and of my money or my resources. And I admire that, but I feel like I can't do that. So I might behave in ways that draws more attention to me, right? Because I'm filtering that group. I'm filtering or seeing that maybe the group doesn't necessarily see me. So I'm going to try to attract that attention to me. So often, like I say, we are admiring the qualities out here that we lack. So, or we assume that we lack. So Leo might be looking out and seeing that, oh, I'm not part of a group, right? But your whole mask was about being the center of attention. So you can see how that opposition can cause you to have to come to the middle of your experience in this life. So the sign qualities here represent the enemy. This is the funniest part, because the seventh house is always been called the house of marriage and partnerships and open enemies. And the enemy part comes in here because these are the parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily like, that we project outward onto other people. And sometimes we oppose the values of the other, right? So that we can look in the mirror and see where it is inside that we are carrying that same trait. And it's especially apparent in the less desirable traits. So we might see as Leo, who's very heart-centered and warm and loving and generous and magnanimous. On this side, we might project outward that the Aquarian end is aloof and unengaged, non-emotional. And so it's interesting that Leo might want somebody like that in their life, while at the same time projecting outward that they don't like those very traits. So it's interesting because the seventh house cusp here, or the descendant, then becomes a mirror. And the mirror is about yourself. It isn't about the other person. It's about what you see in that other person that either you're rejecting and pushing away from, or that you're saying, I want more of. Either way, our relationships are teaching us something about ourselves, and the descendant is showing you what it is, both good and not so good, that you are trying to bring into yourself or that you are rejecting from yourself. And it also in some way shows you what qualities you have repressed in your own life. So in this, then, the descendant, the need for us with the descendant is to really look at what's been repressed by ourselves. No one else has done this to you, by the way. So what light have you repressed? What dark have you repressed? But if you can look at that and create win-win, you have the opportunity to create really emotionally satisfying relationships. And after all, that's what we want, right? The relationships that last the longest are the ones where we find ourselves within that person and that person finds themselves within us. And it's a mutual sort of thing. And we accept and we love both the things we like, and also love and accept the things that we don't necessarily like, because we are recognizing in the end that it's all us, right? It's all us as individuals. All right, questions about that? I'm going to stop sharing, and then I think we'll take a look at a couple of people's charts. Do I have time for that? Yes, I do. Okay, so where was I going? Back to this. Okay. Georgia. Oh, Jennifer, you're in Georgia. How cute. Peachy, Georgia, the Peach State. But I code for 4 hospitals in California. Ooh, another like hotbed of, supposedly a hotbed of COVID virus. So Joy Ann says, focus on leadership, ignore the politics. Absolutely. Taylor, interesting. I heard 7th house of enemies, also because we used to marry our enemies in order to make us stronger or resolve issues. Wow, that's interesting. That is interesting because in human design, there's a channel, and it's called the channel of marriage, but it's not the marriage like we think of, oh, I love you. It is the channel of the bargain. It is the marriage contract, where in some ways, you know, in the old days, they used to seal relationships between countries or warring tribes and things like that with a marriage, right? A marriage then bonded the two warring nations, or the two nations, tribes, whatever. So there is that part of it. That's kind of an older expression of it. And more updated in this would be, you know, being able to look in that mirror and see yourself. And what is it that you're looking for? Sue, 29-degree Leo for ascendant and 29 Aquarius descendant. Very interesting. Anything additional for the 29th degree? Well, yeah, in that the 29th degree we know is karmic. And so it's likely that in some ways, the people that are showing up on the screen of your life, Sue, are also the people that you have agreements with to show up within each other's life at this time for that reason, to both be able to grow in some way. So I would say that then your relationships really are taking on a life that really has you looking deeper within, looking deep into that mirror, really looking and seeing your own beauty in those relationships, seeing your own truth in those relationships, but without shaming, blaming, or guilt tripping the other person at the other end. So Taylor, is that why it's best to be with our rising opposite? I remember my mom told me that. It would be, it's possible, right? It's possible. You have to take more into consideration than that. For example, I've been married, how many years now? 37 years, to a man that is a Libra with a Gemini moon, and my descendant is Capricorn. And his Capricorn is not even populated, if anything, much. So it doesn't follow that I'm married to a Capricorn because that's what's on my descendant. But if I go back in time to what first drew me in, it was the fact that he was responsible, right? That he was willing to take care of his life and be mature in his life. And he's a clown and he's funny. And I absolutely loved that about him as well. It's that he was the balance between having a serious side and having the funny side. And so it was the characteristic of the energies on the descendant, not the actual sign. So while I didn't attract a Capricorn, in fact, all my life, every boyfriend I ever had was a Libra, which is so funny when I look at it. And then I married a Libra. The one man I almost married was also a Libra. It's too funny. But then what does that say, right? I was looking for balance, apparently, as a soul. To my mirror, what I needed to see in the mirror was balance in some way. So you look at the qualities, perhaps, not just the sign. So I hope that helps. Amy said you can always look at my chart. Awesome. We'll look at yours. Amanda J, I'd love you to look at mine. And Amanda, your last name was Jeff's, right? So I'm just going to write that down so I don't lose that. Could I be finishing the karma? Absolutely. The 29th is the last degree. So it is coming into completion, in some way dispensing with the wheel of karma, right? With other people, the people that you have had the most trouble with. But I would also pay attention, Sue, to who you are attracting to you in your life, that show you the absolute brilliance of you, that show you your genius, that you really love and they love you, and you have really great relationships, because that's what you have to look forward to as well. So Kathy Vick, I have North Node in the first, conjunct Ascendant and Pluto. 7th is Sun conjunct Chiron and Mercury. I find remain a human projection screen. Thanks for explaining the 7th. It's tricky having my Sun there. You can almost guarantee. So first of all, we didn't talk about, well, what happens about people who have a lot of planets in the 7th house. I have a granddaughter and a son who have a very highly charged 7th house, and charged because there's a lot of planets in that particular house. When you have a lot of planets in a particular house in your chart, that puts a lot of focus and emphasis on the matters pertaining to that house. So a lot of planets in the 7th house mean likely going through a lot of different relationships, a lot of different mirrors, having some ups and downs and some trials and tribulations, maybe even some karma that you're incurring and karma that you're dispelling in that particular part of your chart. So when you have a Chiron there and you have a Mercury there and you have a Pluto there, that is that's a very heavy part. It is a very heavy, responsibility laden place in your chart, where you're having to really look deeply into the other to be able to see the mirror of what it is that you're projecting outward from yourself. So it's such a juicy place, right? The whole first 7th axis is such a juicy place, because we can really, really get to the nitty gritty of who we are and what we are really looking for in other people. I will try to do that. Kathy, I'm not sure that I have you entered into that system yet, but if I do, we can look at that. J Lo says, my descendant is Gemini, 1 degree. I notice I must like that sign. It's my Venus, 11 degrees, ascendant 24, and no planets in the 7th house, just in the first. So likely then, J Lo, what you're attracted to are people who are curious, who are inspiring you to, check into more information. You like to gather information. So likely a partner would have to meet you on an intellectual level, right? No matter what, you would want to be able to have interesting conversations and mental repartee, going on with someone. And likely your relationships that last the longest or are the deepest are going to be the ones where you were able to have that kind of communication style with them, and to be able to share your keen insight, their keen insights, and be able to share that in a sort of adventure between the two of you. So there you have that. Kathy says, I forgot to mention my nodes are there too. So destiny along that line. Yowza. Sounds like fun. Okay, let's go back to some charts then. Before I do that, real quickly, let me just say what the Pleiadian Earth energy is of the day. so that I don't give that short shrift, because it's really important now, because we're getting closer and closer to our point of ascension, to our point of completion. Today we are in the 11 energy, which is the number of illumination, and we are at 11 intuiting. In the Mayan calendar, intuiting energy was Kib, and Kib was the representation of sort of gathering wisdom. It was almost a wise face, or in some respects, sometimes it was the vulture. And it's a kind of an interesting sign in the Mayan calendar, I think. And it's also pretty interesting here in the Pleiadian energy. It's almost like eating away at the outer world, so that what's left is your intuition and your inner world that can shine outward from you. So let's look at 11 deeper. For those of you who are new, the Pleiadian-Earth energy has 2 components, 2, not 4. And the 2 components are a universal energy for the day. That means that no matter where you are on this planet, no matter what planet you are on, no matter what life form you are resonating with this particular energy. And then the Earth energy, which is specific to the life forms here on Earth. And today is 11 intuiting. So 11 is the number of illumination, turning the light on, right? The sun shining very brightly, where new awareness comes in and helps us to see the truth, the real truth, not the truth that's being fed to you from outside of you, but the truth that shines outward from you, from within you. And it's an action oriented toward opening our eyes, opening our heart, opening our minds to be able to see the truth in a bigger way, to really gain perspective on a larger scale, right? To step back. And if you were, the moment you pass, and pass as in die, you're going to be in receipt of such major truths, such profound truths, as you pull your energy out of the body and you're able to look back in from that pure spiritual point of view. And we can do that literally without having to die, by just pulling back, right? Stepping backward to become the observer of what's going on and see things with bigger eyes. And then from that place, you can see that pain results when we resist the truth, right? The more we resist seeing the truth of something in our lives, no matter how many times the universe is hitting us over the head with it, we still suffer, right? Then we are in pain, literally physical pain. It could be mental pain. It could be emotional pain. It could be psychic pain. But that pain is telling you something about what it is that you're resisting in your life. What are you resisting, right? You're resisting the truth. And what is that truth? Who knows? It's going to be personal for you. But there's always a bigger truth standing behind it. And that's the one that we really want access to. And then the question is, how can we serve unity consciousness by becoming more aware of that bigger truth? So that's what illumination means for us today. Intuiting energy is about something new that's coming, some new opportunity, something new awareness, something that we haven't thought of before. And it brings grace, it brings ease when we trust the process, right? When we trust our own voices, when we trust our own inner self, when we trust what's going on from within us. We may also face tests on a day like today. We may be challenged, and these challenges or these tests require our being in acceptance of what is in the moment. Not necessarily that it's going to be that way forever, but accepting where we are in this moment, that our creative energies have brought us to this point, that we have created this situation. And now how do we create something new from that? Follow your inner guidance to overcome these challenges, right? If those appear in your path today, you're going to overcome them by really using your inner guidance. But again, don't make a big decision if you are emotionally defined unless you wait for clarity over time. And this is about a day where spirit is the guide, where we are much more inclined to be able to pull backwards, inwards, to be able to let spirit be our guides. So it's a really powerful day that way. And I think that's sort of related to that moon trine Neptune energy that is still very powerful here, giving us the radar, if you will, the towers to be able to bring in information that we need in order to move forward in our lives. All right, so let's see here. Questions on any of that? If they cannot speak, good, I get bored. There you go. And Debbie says I can look at her. So let's look at a couple of charts. Now I can't remember who all said I could do that. It was Amy and it was, yeah, well, let's look at Augustina, was it? Oh my. Amanda. Okay, so let's look at Amy and Amanda's charts for right now, and then I'll take others as time permits. So first of all, let me pull up a chart for you, Amy. And that might take just a moment here. So please stand by. Talk amongst yourselves. Amy Moore, right? And Amy, there we go. And Amy, I'm actually going to pull transit charts up for people. So we're going to see a mess. But I want to see if there's anything transiting by there as, you know, another part of our lesson here today. There we go. Now you should be seeing Amy's chart. I'm going to pull that up so all your birth information isn't splashed out there, Amy. So in Amy's chart, we're looking at a Virgo ascendant. So a personality that is steeped in routine, is practical, likes to have things orderly, thinks probably in an orderly manner, and sort of the model of wanting to live a life holistically and engaged in the details of life. Now, on the opposite side is Pisces energy. So Pisces energy is imagination, it's fantasy even. It is the impractical to the Virgo practical. It is the odd couple. I can never, ever get this image out of my mind. There used to be a TV show on when I was just a little kid. It was called The Odd Couple. And one guy's name was Felix and the other one's name totally escapes me, but one was the slob and the other one was this really fastidious neatnik type of person. That is the Virgo Pisces axis in its most humorous, right? Where the Virgo is the fastidious, routine oriented neatnik, while the other side is the all around slob, right? They're just sort of living their life in the moment. And it's just a picture that I got in my head. And so now I always look at that axis and think, so where am I too perfectionistic on one side? And on the other side, where do I need to let go a little bit and have some fun with my imagination and my artistry and have compassion and joy in just the beingness of this sign? So for you, Amy, on one side, you know, maybe you have some very particular things that you're looking for in your relationships. And what you maybe project outward over here is maybe you attract to you people who are unorganized, who live up in the dream world, who are consummate dreamers, but not anything practical. So you may have found yourself attracting people in your life that are artists or who are not very grounded or who seem to just, you know, fly by the seat of their pants in their lives. And that might go against what your Virgo routine oriented down to earth is. Or maybe you are more like the imaginative, creative Pisces over here, and you don't like that part of yourself, right? You maybe don't like that part of yourself. And so, or maybe you don't like the more routine oriented part of yourself. So you're constantly out here looking for the more artistic, creative types. And right on your descendant is literally is Pallas Athena. She's like 2 degrees into it. So you're looking also for freedom. There's a freedom component here. Venus here wants love, and it wants love in the romantic sense. It wants love in the most imaginative, you know, it's like reading a romance novel and wanting to live out that kind of romance. And then you also have the sun in this part of your house, but the sun is wait a minute, your sun is not in Aries, your sun is in Pisces. Why does it look, oh, because of the solar eclipse here. So your sun is literally at 22 degrees of this. So you've got the sun, your prenatal solar eclipse, your Venus, and your Pallas Athena all within 10 degrees of one another here. So you have lessons to learn in the 7th house. You have things to look at about being imaginative and creative, about letting go and surrendering, right? Surrendering some of this more perfectionistic and critical thinking Virgo energy over here. So it's natural for you to be that way, to be perfectionistic, but perfection sometimes also has to be untied and let loose and be let to the creative energies. The fact that your Venus is also here, remember I said that, I think it was Taylor that was saying something about the Descendant and, you know, being attracted to that person as an opposite. Well, often in an astrology chart, it's not just the Descendant. In my own chart, for example, I gave you that example. We also have to look to Venus. What's Venus looking for in a partner, or what is Mars looking for in a partner? So for a woman, we look to Mars, and Mars is at 0 degrees of Gemini in your chart. So part of you is very similar to J-Lo, where you're looking to meet someone on an intellectual level. A creative intellectual would be the best person for you to help you let go of some of your more finicky perfectionistic tendencies and to live a little from the imagination and live a lot from the sharing of information and ideas and inspiration. Ha! There you go. So that's who you're looking for. Not necessarily a Piscean, not necessarily a Gemini, but someone who has those characteristics embedded within them. And note then that you also carry those characteristics embedded within you, right? You might find sometimes that you judge those kind of people harshly. And if so, you're really just in rejection of the part of yourself that wants to connect to that yourself. Yowza, hopefully that helps. And transit right now, you have Neptune moving through here, and also the goddess Ceres. She's just crossed over the Descendant. So we're looking at, you know, maybe some real unclarity in this part of your life. You're having to really look at the more spiritual component. Neptune is going to conjunct your sun in, no, it's not going to this year. It won't happen until next year. And maybe that brings you someone where you can connect on that level. The sun is often representing the light, someone who comes in that sheds that light for you. So there's that. Hopefully that's helpful. And if you have any questions, I'll look back at that in a minute. I want to take a quick look at Amanda's chart here. So let me see if I can do Amanda Jeff's. Amanda. All right, we're going to have to go to J here because I'm never going to get it this way. Too many Amandas out there. Even in my own family, I have 2 Amandas. And, oh, wait, went too far. H-I-J. There we are. All right, so Amanda, we're going to do the same kind of chart for you. It will be a transit chart. And I'm going to bring it up bigger, and I will roll your personal information out of the way. So here we have Amanda. And Amanda has the sun on her Descendant. How fascinating, like 1 degree from the Ascendant, across Taurus and Scorpio. So Taurus, and interesting, you have Uranus moving through your 12th house. So there's probably some stellar observations coming up in your life. Did we just look at your chart? Because, wow, this looks so familiar to me. So Ascendant at 23 degrees of Taurus. So you're, again, very practical, down to earth. Also very, this is Venus ruled. Venus here, though, takes on self-love and self-esteem and self-confidence. Also about prosperity and being prosperous, and what does that mean to you? And then on the opposite side, so over here with the sun sitting on the Descendant, you're looking for some depth, right? You're looking for someone that's going to meet you in a very deep emotional way. And partly, you know, Taurus is very sensual energy. It's the physical part of a love relationship, let's say. It is and it's not just sexual though. It's I want affection. I want to be touched. I want to be wooed. I want to be romantic. There's a lot of things here that you're projecting outward. And on the other end, the Scorpio end is also meeting up with someone who is sexually as your meet, right? Your mate there, that is, you know, passionate, who's intense, but is also meeting you on a deeply emotional level. So you're looking for emotional connection here. And you have the sun here, so likely a Scorpio or someone who has those kind of Scorpio traits. Let's look to where your Mars is. Your Mars is over here in Aries. So I can see that you likely, and you're going to have a Mars return here shortly. Great, all of that happening during the Mars retrograde cycle. Yay, I'm sure we talked about that if that was a part of our conversation last week. Interestingly enough, the sun over here might be a little bit hidden from you. Because the descendant is something we don't see clearly, right? We see it clearly if we recognize that we're looking at in the face of an other, then we can see it more clearly than if we don't look at it that way. So you need to look at where are you being intense? You know, where are your needs not being met? Because Scorpio has needs that want to be met. And right now, if I look at this in the right way, I can see that you're also looking, your best partner, if you will, is someone that's going to carry some Aries traits, who's independent, who's interdependent, let's say, who needs you but doesn't need you, who loves you but doesn't need you to be anything other than who you are, who is sort of carefree and on the surface sort of carefree and loving and youthful, but is also capable of that deeper emotional connection. So that's what all of this is. And if you look at Scorpio here and Pallas Athena here, you also have, and those two being in Sagittarius, there's also part of you in relationships that's looking for adventure, who's looking for someone that's going to take you outside of yourself, who in a way, in your first house, there's Gemini energy that is also going to meet you on the intellectual and the mental level, who's going to inspire you, who's going to make you curious to go deeper into them and into what they represent for you. So, whoa, that's a lot, right? Okay, let's look back. Comments. How did you guys think about that? Good. Taylor, is that okay? Nope, I've gone to the wrong side. There we go. Amanda, yes, we had a reading a few weeks ago. No wonder I recognize that chart. I recognize your name and I know that, but I thought maybe we had done a combo reading or something where I was looking at both charts. Kimberly says the odd couple, Laura Wolf, Oscar, that was his name, Oscar and Felix. Amy says, wow, makes so much sense. I hope everyone learned lessons and now I can attract good Pisces energy because I feel like I've had the low side, drugs and irresponsible. Indeed. You know, it brings up something about that Neptune and Pisces energy too, where they're often looking for the ideal, not the real. You want the real, but there's a part of you that's also looking for an ideal. And maybe that's the part you haven't quite recognized. So you draw these people to you so you can see where it is that you're not looking for what's real, where either that or where you're ignoring that the ideal is right in front of you, right? So lots of different things that you can look at with that. JLo says, now I wonder who I'm looking for. You're looking for someone who's going to meet you on the mental, emotional. You're looking for someone that you can share information with, who is as curious as you are. That's what you want. Allison says, my descendant is 1 Capricorn with Mercury in the 7th house. What does that mean with everything in Capricorn now? It means likely you're focusing a lot on what kind of person you might want to attract in your life. I'm sure there's a lot of reconstruction in what you've been thinking about. And your descendant in Capricorn is so familiar to me, right? Because I did not attract a Capricorn to me, but I did attract someone who had the traits that Capricorn has, that are responsible, that are mature in their response to the world, that also incorporate, they're real, but they're not so real, so realistic that you can't have fun with them. And so I, of course, I attracted a Libra who's the balance of those kinds of characteristics. But definitely for you, satisfaction is going to come when you can meet somebody on that level, where you can meet somebody that's responsible as you are, who is as mature as you are, who is intent on, improving themselves and working on themselves as you are in your life. So there you go. Amanda, so interesting. Yes, okay. That is it, right? And I know other people said I could look at their charts, but we are out of time here for today. So maybe we can revisit this. We still have the midheaven and the nadir to go through. So maybe you're hopefully getting a better picture by looking at your own chart. Just ask yourself this question: what do you appreciate in other people, in relationships, in your closest relationships? What do you appreciate? What do you really look at and say, gosh, I wish I was like that? Because that's going to tell you what you feel you're missing and what it is that you're looking for outside of yourself. What the moment you choose to embrace those qualities that you think are outside of you that you don't have, but that are really here inside of you, then your relationships become not necessarily places for projection, but places for that emotional connection. So we'll leave it at that today. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday. By the way, an announcement tomorrow night. I am going to be on Angel Heart Radio with Anea Joy Halili and Carol Ann Cross. We are going to be going into the human design mutation that is scheduled to occur in 2027. We're already seeing the effects of that ramping up within our human designs. Our DNA is already being worked upon through mutative efforts. The pressures of mutation to be able to express this new energy. But what is that new energy and how can we consciously connect with it? That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow night on Angel Heart Radio. You can join us on Facebook on the Angel Heart Radio page. Here's the kicker. It's going to be at 6:30 p.m. my time, which puts it at 9:30 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, very much later than that if you're on the Europe. It's really Australian time that we're in because they are in Australia. But the good news is it is recorded. And for those of you where that's just too late to be listening to a conversation like that, you can pick up that recording by going back to the Angel Heart Radio page tomorrow. I will also get that link and post it on my site. All right. That's it for me today. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.